most wicked things that social media ever did in terms of a trending is convince women, one, to shame women for being strong and independent, and then to basically say that the solution to that is to be dependent completely on a man. And if they are not able to do that, that there's something completely wrong with them, right? I can tell you, as a woman that was raised by a very traditional woman, my mother and my father have been together for 35 plus years, that was never going to be the solution. And as a woman raised basically as the firstborn in an immigrant household, I definitely, like, being independent is a part of my hard drive, you understand? But the alternative to being independent, regardless of all the consequences that people give, like, oh, man's never going to want you, you're never going to get married, all these different things, even with all the consequences, the solution being provided, which was become the type of woman that completely depends on a man for her livelihood, that was never, my brain was never going to register that, because it's just not logical. I'm way too analytical to think that way, right? So when you tell a woman who has sense and who understands life and who understands that the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows, to put everything, her entire life, and make it dependent completely on a man, like, that makes no logical sense. So my reason for retiring my independent woman has nothing to do with a man. Nothing to do with that. This is something that God spoke to me directly and told me to give to him. And even when he spoke to me and told me to give this to him, I literally in that moment said, oh, you don't love me. Because why would you want to make me vulnerable? Because you have to remember, in my mind, I was fully dependent on myself, because I had established a full-blown belief system that I can't be dependent on anyone else. And I love my stubbornness in this regard. This is the one time my stubbornness worked in my favor, because my stubbornness made me refuse to go along with anything that social media or society was saying. Even my mom, right, my traditional mother, was beating into my head, because I'm like, if the solution is to be fully dependent on a man for my livelihood, if that's what you're telling me, I'm not changing. If I need to change, what you're telling me needs to make sense, right? And people weren't making sense to me. And the problem is because when you're telling women to give up their, their strength, that I call survival strength, you're telling them to give it up for weakness. Essentially, you need to be weaker and allow a man to be stronger. And I don't revolve my life around whether a man is weaker or stronger to determine the strength that I'm going to carry, right? So as a believer in Christ, when the Lord spoke to me and really let me see that I was holding myself back, not only was this independent woman identity getting in the way of my relationship with him, but it was getting in the way of me receiving everything that he promised me. That's when I was like, okay, talk to me, Lord. Tell me what you're saying. And that's when he revealed to me how this survival strength, me operating out of it, is rooted in fear, right? It's arrogant, ultimately, because the same way I have enough sense to know that putting my entire livelihood on another human being, that makes absolutely no sense. Putting it entirely on myself equally makes absolutely no sense, right? And he had to show me that the entire burdens, responsibilities, everything that has to do with life, I have to entrust that to him. And what it revealed to me is that in order to release independence, you have to be willing to trust the other party. So some women decide to trust a man. Again, that is foolish to me long term, right? Because humans are humans, and you have to give humans grace and space to be humans. But to give that trust to God, I needed to identify what was inside of me that was struggling to do that. And the journey to uncovering why I was struggling to trust God, it was not an easy one. Because at the end of the day, he's not a man that he should lie. And that was the problem. At my core, what it revealed was that I had a belief system. Even though I believed in God's power, I believe in what he's able to do, I still believe that, I still question whether or not he would do it for me. I still doubted that if I asked God for an apple, that he would give me a snake. And because I did not trust completely in his character and his intentions, guess who I leaned on? Myself, right? And it's no different than Peter, right? You have so much trust in your character, you have so much trust in your belief system, but then you do something that really shocks yourself, where you know that you are just loyal. Like, no way, Jesus, I would never deny you. Me, I know me. And then you're placed in a situation, you're backed up against the wall, and you realize that there is weakness in you, that you are human, right? That you can break. And when I had my own breaking point, it was a shocker for me to find out that I do have weakness within me. You know what I mean? That I'm capable, like, as strong as I think my strength is, it ain't that strong, right? And that's what I mean about that arrogance that you have when you're so strongly independent and you put everything on your back. And trust me, this goes for men and women, because as a man, you know, to think that a woman could just put everything on your back and you're going to carry it for the rest of your life, that's egotistical within itself, right? You don't leave room. And then when it's realized that you're human, there's so much issues that are created there. Anyways, what I want to say is, ultimately, if you feel like you're stuck and trapped in survival mode, and you're looking at what social media or society is offering you, and you understand the problems, right? But the solution that's being offered to you absolutely does not make sense. I want you to understand, God is not telling you to give up being this strong, independent woman identity, or even a man that's completely egotistical and thinks everything needs to be on his shoulders. God is not telling you to give that up and put it on another human being. That's not what he's telling you to do. Society's telling you to do that, not God. God is trying to take that strength and give you a better kind of power, a true power, right? Divine empowerment. And because we are conditioned to think, or we are being sold to think, that we need to give up the strength for weakness, women who are smart reject that idea. But if only you understood that divine empowerment is what you're getting. So if you do it the world's way, yes, you're going to give up that strong, independent woman personality, and you're going to put the responsibility or the burden or the expenses on another human being. That's what you're going to do. Again, human beings will fail you, right? Some of them, they mean the very best, and their intentions is not to harm you. However, you have to understand that they're not fail-proof. The only fail-proof one, the only perfect one, is Jesus. So if I'm giving up that independent woman because I understand, like, the risks that's associated with that, I can't give it up to just anybody. So for me to be stubborn enough to refuse to give it up to any human being, but yet be intelligent enough to give it to God, personally, I think that says a lot. I'm just saying. But what I'm encouraging you to know is that survival strength, you don't have to think that, okay, I need to give up the strength for weakness. That's the world's way of telling you that you need to become weaker so that you can get your needs met. No. God is offering you something so much better and something so much different. He's not trying to take away your strength to make you weak. He's taking your strength to give you the proper kind of empowerment, divine empowerment.